on a scale of 1 to 10. How serious are the problems right now for the Seahawks?
So are you saying the problem, like the problem of run defense or the problem of pass protection? Because those are, I think,
I'm saying the problem of losing 3 straight games.
The problem of losing 3 straight.
Yes. The overall larger scale, how big a hole are they in right now?
Scale of 1 to 10, I would call it like a 6.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it's a nothing. I don't think it's a 10. I don't think it's insurmountable. But there are significant issues, and the data tells you that. Your eyes tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We all have fun with you, and we'll let Daniel Jeremiah on Wednesday make his own confession.
I sort of spilled the beans on that one earlier.
Oh, you already did?
Well,
okay.
half-heartedly.
Of course he did. But there are times where, over the years, a little bit like my wife Molly, after all these years we've been together, more than half of my lifetime, in fact, and you and I, golly, have been together a long time. Not quite that long, but a long time, where I do start to trust your eyes a little bit. Where I'm like, okay, I appreciate that.
After almost 16 years, Brock's finally starting to trust my eyes a little.
Yeah, not all the time.
Is that as your eyes have gotten worse that now you're starting to trust mine?
Yeah, like as I'm going blind. Yes.
Well, this may be the blind leading the blind. I don't know how to tell you. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
But your eyes with John Carlson knew before some of us did that, like, I don't see it. Right, with Jake Locker as a passer, I just don't see it.
Mm-hmm.
There's been these moments, through the years where there's just kind of I'm looking at it through totally unbiased optics and some of your past and history. Like I don't see this. So your eyes have seen some significant issues up front for years, and those are real, right? We all have seen with our own eyes these significant issues in the run defense for years.
Mm-hmm.
For years, and it is real. So those are probably like a 7 and 8, and then some of the other ball security or run game or pass game are probably a 2 and 3, and then you kind of wash them all together in the machine, and it spits out about a 6.
Yeah, I mean, look, we knew that there would be ups and downs, right? With a new coach, a new system, new all of it. We also know that things generally aren't as good as they seem when they're good, and aren't as bad as they seem when they're bad. Yep. And when you lose, 3 games in a row, things seem really bad. This isn't an excuse. It's just the fact that those 3 games came in 11 days. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't have lost them, but it should provide some context for how serious you think the problem is. Right? That's the only way I think things like that are valuable. Mm-hmm. It doesn't help to be like, oh, it's fine. No one's saying it's fine to lose 3 games in a row, but to know that there's maybe some context behind it is helpful when you're trying to figure out how serious the problem is and how much to make changes afterwards.
And when your significant problems, as I mentioned, like your protection and then your run game are tested to a 10 with a Aiden Hutchinson and a Bosa on your 3rd string right tackle, it's going to be that much more problematic. And those pressure numbers are very real. And most of them have come from that spot where you're playing a guy that should be a depth player that is thrown against the very best in the league at doing it, Bosa and Hutchinson. And then conversely, like your run defense is thrown against, a Detroit team that's the best in ball right now. And then their run play action off of that. In San Francisco, obviously, their O-line and their system and their scheme and their run play pass and Debo and Kittle and Aiyuk. Yeah, it's going to kind of all be exacerbated a little bit with your opponent and whom you're playing. So, I would say a 6. And that's why you're probably a 9 and 8, 8 and 9 team, unless you really sharpen up or you really fall off of a cliff.
You think the issues that we've seen over the last 3 weeks, primarily talent or primarily coaching?
I'm going to lean a little more on the talent into that.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I'm going to lean a little more into the talent side of an offensive line that's just got some pieces there. I was looking, I think someone tweeted this out. We talk about payroll. I think you're committing to this offensive line something like $22-23 million. Yes. Obviously, Cross is still on a rookie contract, and Lakin's on a 1-year deal, and Connor's on a 1-year deal, and Bradford was a 4th-round pick on a rookie contract, and your right tackle right now is on his rookie contract is a late round pick. So I think you're like 22-23 million across the whole board there. I think Jamal's getting paid. You paid him 20 million, right? So, or 18 million. That's a spot where the talent you've tried to once again just kind of kind of get the most out of some of the least, and it's been problematic. And then throw in the injury to Abe and throw in the injury to George Fant, and it just really throws a little more kerosene on that fire.
It should definitely get better, though, when you pay DK a ton of money. Okay, we'll come back to that conversation maybe a little bit later. But I think I'm with you. And
then defensively, like your two linebackers are also on one-year deals. That's kind of what the market, was willing to pay those guys. The market is what the market's willing to pay for a reason. And I think, unfortunately, some of their limitations against the run have been exposed and shown up a little bit. And, yeah, I'd lean a little more on the talent than I would the coaching end of things on that.
Yeah, I think I'm probably with you. And that's not going to get fixed this year. Right? I mean, that's not going, that you can't do that much about the talent over the course of the season. You'll get Byron Murphy back, which would be nice. Maybe Abe Lucas at some point, although, again, I think he's more of an idea than a reality.
Is there a linebacker you could trade for?
Maybe, but do you really want to?
A third-round pick or fourth-round pick? You got some compensatory picks there in that third and fourth round.
So I tend to agree with all of that, but I'll at least play you some sound the other direction. Sean Alexander talking about the Seahawks thinks they've got plenty of talent, especially on offense.
It's wild. You want to know that the defense is solid, but then you're like, wait a minute, you got these great receivers, you got two really good running backs. I feel like we don't score enough early. Like I feel like it's never really like comfortable, and then you let the defense just kind of go after there. So yeah, like it's been hard watching my crew for these last 3 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, Detroit, they kind of went up and down the field. The opening drive against San Francisco, you go down the field and you throw a really bad interception that you're trying to force the issue there. And then, Salk, you have said this over the last couple of years, that on a Sunday where you're not watching the Seahawks and you're just flipping around watching these other games, what doesn't look the same? Well, it doesn't. The offensive lines and the amount of just pressure. Now, the bad teams, it looks the same.
Yeah.
Like you're just getting hit and you're getting pressured and, you're getting.
Well, and I think it's somewhat ironic that Sean Alexander, of all people, is not talking about the offensive line when you're talking about the talent.
Right.
And that's not to take anything away from him as a running back. He was a great one.
Yep.
But a pretty darn good offensive line in front of him with a couple of Hall of Famers on the left side and Robbie Tobeck and everybody else. I mean, he, of all people, should know the importance of that position.
Yeah,
so.
and again, you look at, if you take Pro Football Focus for what it is, but what it does give you is, they typically grade and evaluate across the entire league.
Yeah.
So it does give you, and you may not like it, you may not agree with it, they may not know everything. It may be very difficult, especially on the old line, Salk, when they don't know every protection and what every call is made. And I get that, but that's across the league. So it does at least give you a comparison tool. And your Pro Football Focus grades up front on the line of scrimmage, save for Charles,
they're pretty rough.
Pretty rough.
They've been pretty rough.
Pretty rough.
All right, Brock, third question. What do you do to turn this around?
Yeah, you get healthy, which they're going to. You're going to get some of these pieces back. Fant is not going to be out the whole year. Lucas, I think they're trying to figure out, Salk, with this bye week impending. There's a certain time frame that when you activate someone from PUP, they've got to be back and playing. So that kind of comes into play. There's got to be an assurance that once they start that clock, that Abe will be good after those 21 days. So you can get him the final, hopefully 5, 6, 7 weeks of the season. So I think that is super important, is this team's got to find a way to stay healthy. And I know that sounds like cliche and that's everybody in the league. No, not quite everybody. Kansas City can get away with it. They can cover some warts and some ills. Detroit can get away with it. They can cover, they're 3-4 years into it. They've developed more of a fully bloomed culture and roster and everything else. Like you're in the infancy stages of building your identity. And to me, it's hyper important that these guys practice. It's important that they're healthy enough to get the work in on Wednesdays and Thursdays. I think it was Tyler Lockett over the weekend or after the game saying, yeah, man, there's got to be more intensity and purpose in our practice, our walkthroughs, our details. Like, you've got to be on it. And it can't be like, well, half the guys are in baseball caps because we can't go. Like, no, like we got to go. So, I think staying healthy for this team over this next 10 weeks, and healthy not just to hopefully get to game time and play, but actually healthy enough to focus and practice.
Interesting.
Where that stuff's built. Kind of back to Iowa, right? Like you can talk about being tough and you can talk about doing all of this, but then you can actually on a Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday walk it and hit and work and have intensity so that by the time you get to Saturday, you're so confident. You're like, I can't wait to move these guys off the